Hello and welcome to Watchworthy. I'm your co-host, Miss Chris D.
And it's your boy, Brother Ash.
And on today's episode, we're covering another episode from the 2024 season of Unsolved Mysteries, which is available on Netflix. Now, I didn't think that we would be back so soon with the Unsolved Mysteries episode, but we had to cover this one, y'all, because this crime happened in our home state of New Jersey. And what's worse, Brother Ash and I have low-key been to the crime scene and didn't know it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I will say
multiple
that we were...
times.
Yeah, like we were in the building. We were there where this crime took place like 40 years ago. And if I knew that, if y'all told me it was ghosts up in there, I probably would not have been in there.
Well, yeah. So it's less of a ghost story, though. It's more of like a...
It's true crime.
It's like a cold case. You know what I mean? So... yeah, thank God that we wasn't...
I'm glad that I was not aware of the crimes that took place at that building. But nevertheless, we're not going to have a poll question for this episode, but I just want to hear some other college campus true crime stories. If you have something that you want to share, leave it in the comments. If you know about this story, if you're from Jersey, it's kind of hard to miss. Like, it happened right in the center of the state. Like, it happened kind of close to the Capitol. And I feel like people know about this one, but it's kind of just flown under the radar because people don't want to talk about it. Like Brother Ash said.
I gotta ask my mom about this because both of my parents grew up in Trenton, and my mother would have been like on her way to maybe in middle school when this happened. So I'm sure she heard about it. I don't know if she remembers, but yeah. So it's one of those things. Like, y'all know Jersey is a small state, and the biggest university here is Rutgers. All the other universities are kind of small. So I feel like if you from Trenton and you was alive during this time, you definitely probably remember this happening. But
at the same time, I feel like they kind of are trying to keep it hush-hush. We're going to get into all of it. So maybe, Brother Ash, you could tell us what the crime is. We're talking about who murdered Sigrid Stevenson.
Yeah, so the murder took place in September, on September 4th in 1977 at Trenton State College. Now it's called TCNJ, Trenton College of New Jersey, but back then it was called Trenton State. I like Trenton State way better.
It's the College of New Jersey.
Yeah.
I think that they said this school went under multiple name changes after Trenton State. They were probably trying to distinguish themselves as the College of New Jersey, as you said, because Rutgers kind of seems like the school's the state school, but
yeah, it definitely is. So that was a nice shot, nice try. But
I went to Rider University, which nobody ever talks about at all. It's in New Jersey, and it's kind of right near TCNJ.
Yeah,
so again, can't believe
close.
I was this close to TCNJ.
So I just think Trenton State sounded a little bit more ethnic. Like, it sounded like it could be HBCU or something. It definitely sounded like it could be HBCU. Everyone was away for Labor Day weekend, so it's low-key close to around the time that we are recording this episode. Labor Day is only in a week from now. So, yeah, and the semester hadn't even started yet. So it was one of those periods before, classes resumed. And that's why a campus police officer thought it was weird that he saw a bike chained up outside of a building called Kendall Hall. So that's the hall that we had been going to. We both have a friend, Emmanuel Simmons. He's a local actor. He's done, stuff, anything he can get his hands on. Works very hard. So he's done a couple of plays through local theater, and they always perform. Not always, but a couple of times we went to go see him perform in Kendall Hall. Not on the main stage. In one of the other stage rooms that they have is where he performed. And that apparently isn't where the actual murder took place.
Yeah, so if I could share...
we were still in the building, which is like kind of like creepy. Like,
during intermission at a couple of Manny's plays, I did go to the restroom, and I could feel that it was like an old 70s building. Like, the hallways were tight. It was just weird. Like, when I was going to the bathroom, like, ran into some people in the hallway, and it was just like such a small hallway, you just felt awkward. You're like, oh, sorry, excuse me. So, like, to think back, like, this girl died in those, they had to take those same hallways to find her body. Like, it's kind of eerie. Like, when you go there, you could feel like something probably did happen there. But yeah, I've only been there twice.
I didn't feel that when I was there.
You didn't feel like, this is an old creepy building?
It just felt like an old building, but like, I spent a lot of time. Well, you went to school at Rider, so like you know.
Let me tell you something. I went to Rider University, but I wasn't in the mean streets of Trenton.
Trenton is a historic city. Trenton's a very historic city. So like my home church that I grew up in had those type of, rooms that you like, like just things you don't see in modern architecture, like those real small, narrow hallways, those kind of rooms you feel like, oh, I will hide out here if somebody broke in. Like Trenton is historic. It's an old city. So like there's a lot of buildings like that still. So when I was there, I just thought it was, classic Trenton. But no, apparently some crazy stuff had gone down there. So yeah, so he made his way over to the theater, and he found Sigrid Stevenson dead in a pool of blood. Red flag number one, because imagine you're a janitor and you come in and you just see a student just dead, like in their own blood, and it's like, well, a million things probably going through your mind.
Well, I guess the red flag would be that it's not supposed to be anybody on campus. So, of course, when you find a dead body, first of all, I need people to just do a better job of, like, I don't know, being armchair detectives and, like, don't touch anything, don't go near the crime scene, like just call the police, because everybody's a suspect. Yeah. Even the person who found her was a suspect.
Yeah, I would hate to find a dead body because I'm like, fuck, I'm a suspect.
Exactly.
Now. But if you don't say nothing, then you're super a suspect. Like,
yeah. And a little bit about Sigrid. She was 25 years old. She was a grad student from California. So imagine you're just an out-of-state student. This isn't even your home state. So they didn't talk about her family much, but I'm sure when they notified her family, they were just like, damn. Like, she was just trying to study music and become a teacher. So that's the whole reason why she was at campus. Apparently, she had, went to Nova Scotia for the summer, and instead of going all the way back home, she was like, I'm gonna go straight to campus. And she was supposed to actually stay with, a local firefighter's family. Like, they were her surrogate family, but they were out of town. Like, what are the odds? Like, so she's just been, couch surfing for the weekend.
Yeah.
And she kind of just, stayed on couches at campus, and when you have that janitor friend, like you said, who opens the door for you, nobody has a problem with it.
No, I didn't have that type of friend in college.
Well, I'm not gonna lie to you. At my college, we were, like you said, it's a very small school. It was very local. We knew the cafeteria workers by name. Somebody might give you extra meal plan or something here or there. So
yeah. I just feel like as you out there by yourself, you from Cali, and you kind of couch surfing, it's that could be dangerous, because
definitely
it could be a friendly janitor friend, but it also could be somebody just waiting for the right moment to manipulate or take advantage of you. These are things you got to think about when you out there in the world by yourself. And unfortunately, Sigrid didn't have a lot of people watching her back. So
this also made me think about, remember, I don't know if it was our time or a little bit before our time, but when they started having those blue lights pop up on college campuses.
Oh, that's way before
That's
our
what I'm
time.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying, when did those start coming? When did they start putting those on campuses?
I feel like when we would go and take my sister on college visits, that was something I remember.
Kind of being new, though.
Yeah, she visited Montclair, and Montclair was adamant about these, because she was the only girl out of the three of us. So my parents were scared shitless about letting her be somewhere by herself. So they like, well, what's campus safety like? And they're like, yeah, we got these posts all throughout campus. If you are getting chased by a murderer, just get to one of these posts.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Even if they had these back in 1977, I don't know how helpful those are to this day on college campuses. Because we hear about a lot of crimes that happen on college campuses. We're right across the bridge from Temple.
And what's the response time for one of those kiosks?
That's the thing. They be trying to sell you, oh, come to our college. We'll get a police officer to your side in 30 seconds. I'm like, I don't buy all that. But, Sigrid, she was studying music, so she was there in the theater playing piano. So imagine you're on stage playing the baby grand piano, and you have your back to the audience. That's probably how somebody snuck up behind her and killed her. And so we're presuming that it's a man, because there was sexual trauma. So red flag for me, because like you said, not only did they murder her, but they also had to take advantage of her and sexually assault her. And so she was found with her underwear down and her blouse tied around her mouth. So it seems like a very brutal situation. She was actually bludgeoned with a blunt object, they said. So we don't know what the object is. It could have been a pipe. It could have been anything. But that was the crime. She was found on center stage, like you said. It was kind of like a movie almost. It was kind of like a play in itself, like a woman found dead on stage.
So, like we was talking about, like our friend that does these plays up at TCNJ, they're not like necessarily Trenton State's, play or showstoppers.
It's
club.
Local theater.
It's local theater that also rents out these theaters. So apparently the night before the murder, September 3rd, Sigrid was like there at Kendall Hall like usually she was, and there was a play production at the theater, and she saw the play and she even talked to some of the actors. So her being, couch surfing there, you don't want to just like be asleep during the whole play, and she's a music girl, so she probably was like, let me look at these guys, try to meet some of them and pass some of this time of me being in this scary old hall by myself.
So it seemed like she was friendly. People were friendly to her, like it was no problems just the night before.
But it also didn't really seem like she had like, this wasn't the girl that got murdered, or at least it felt like this wasn't the girl that got murdered. And I think you said you even looked some stuff up, and it didn't seem like the campus was in as much of an uproar as you would think.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know if it was because she was from, a long way home, or she just didn't have a lot of friends, or maybe people didn't like her for whatever reason.
People did call her quirky. But that was one quote that I saw, quirky.
Most kids in the arts are. Like, a lot of, so they usually, when you get to college, you find other kids that are majoring in music and want to be teachers, and you guys can do quirky things together. It didn't really seem like she had anybody, honestly. Like, maybe a couple friends, but I don't know. It just seemed like, maybe she was trying to get to know these actors at this local play company because maybe she truly just wanted to have, good relationships with people. So some of them said that she was in good spirits at first, but her mood changed later that night because apparently she had gotten into an argument with a man. Red flag. So
why is he not a suspect? Who is this man?
Well, they
said that the man is unknown.
Yeah, so the man is unknown, but people started kind of like, oh, well, it might have been that guy because he seemed to be a little bit of a prick, and he did go in the room while she was in there. So that's all, hearsay at the moment. So one suspect is Chuck. All right. So Chuck is an abusive guy. He was an actor in the play, or possibly someone in campus law enforcement, because Sigrid had ligature marks on her wrist like handcuffs. So
these are really the only two suspects.
Yeah. So Chuck was in the play, and Chuck was a douche. Like, people knew he was a douchebag. And his role, I think he was a role of a cop, like he was playing a cop or a security guard. So he would have had handcuffs as a prop. And the other people who we were thinking might be a suspect could have been campus police or security, because one, they would have seen Sigrid a lot, probably had some run-ins with her, like, hey, get out this damn building.
They did. I did see some articles that said that she had a habit of, sneaking into buildings and couch surfing, and they kind of had to chase her out before. I'm under the impression that my suspicion is that it could be, just a campus law enforcement person or something. The sexual aspect of the crime makes me think maybe, again, she was just chilling, playing piano. Somebody tried to make an advance. She declined. They got mad and killed her over it and raped her over it. And so I think with the handcuff situation, I'm thinking that it is kind of a law enforcement person. And maybe that's why we haven't been able to find somebody. Like, maybe it's an old UN cop. I don't want to point fingers, but maybe it's an old... I don't think it's an actual police officer. Yeah. Scratch that. I think it's a campus police officer. Probably some loser on campus that saw a girl by herself when nobody else was around and took advantage.
Well, campus police, they still have to, you still have to become a cop. Okay, so they're not like a mall cop. Yeah, so they're not like, mall cops are basically just security guards that the mall hires a security company and... but when there's a killer in the loose in the mall, or somebody that's actually dangerous in the mall that's not going to do what Paul Blart says, they're going to call the cops. So campus police should be actual police. I think Chuck did that shit. Oddly enough, though, Chuck died in 2016. So the case was never solved, and then they opened it back up. So they like, hey, now that we know a little bit more about this Chuck guy, let's look into it. But he died. So, you can't really persecute a dead man. So it kind of just,
well,
it just leaves a lot of question marks.
It's not that easy because, like, he could have still did it, but apparently the DNA does not link him to the crime. Now, we're so adamant about Chuck because in the documentary episode, his ex-girlfriend, Susie, she was like, I dated this bull in the 80s, and he was very abusive to me, and he also said, like, something along the lines of, I'll kill you like I've killed before. And so she was, like, dead set, like, it's him, I'm telling y'all. I was recently on Reddit, and she was still on Reddit to this day.
I'm telling y'all,
in 2024, saying that it was him.
Chuck did that shit. And when you look at his picture on the documentary, he looked like them motherfuckers that was killing people in the 70s
creepy.
and the 80s.
He does look pretty creepy.
Like, he fits the description. And then the ex-girlfriend is saying these things, and then the motherfucker mysteriously dies. What if he didn't really die?
Red flag, actually, for me, because this is what happens when we have men who have a history of abuse. Again, this is all alleged. Chuck was never charged with the crime. I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but if someone is already telling y'all, like, oh, he was abusive to me, she was not the first. You can best believe she was not the first, and he probably abused other people. And what also points to Chuck that we didn't mention is Sigrid. We mentioned that she went to go see the play. You know when you go to a play and you get a playbill? They said in the documentary episode that she, like, circled his picture in the playbill and wrote, nice guy, bought me a beer. So maybe they were cool. Maybe she was friendly with him, and then he took it too far.
Yeah.
So,
and like,
yeah, I think those are the two best suspects, either like a law enforcement officer or Chuck.
So you got a underage girl, an older guy buying her beer, right? What's something you do if you're not that I would know, but I'm saying, like, you know what they groom their victims a lot of the times. Like, I'm gonna buy you a beer to get you comfortable around me, to make you think you owe me something. And then when he maybe tried to get some later, she said no, and then that's when things took a turn. So, but the whole key to this Unsolved Mysteries episode is that it's an unsolved mystery. So, like, as much as we were leaning towards Chuck or the police officer, they're just going down list of people who it might be. Like the people who did the lighting technicians, they had keys to the building. They would have known how to, sneak up on Ingrid without her necessarily seeing them. So yeah, that's the whole thing with Unsolved Mysteries. Like, it's not solved, so we could be the detectives that break the case.
Yeah, that's why this one really hit home, because we've literally been there. We've been in that building. Nobody ever mentioned it. I mean, it's not the first thing you're going to tell somebody on a college tour, like, oh, we had a murder here. But had I known that, I just would have looked at it differently. I don't know. Like, we are definitely those kind of armchair detectives. Whenever we're watching something like this, we're like, who you think did it? Well, I think they did it. And so I feel like this should be a cut and dry case. Like, you got a murdered girl in a college. There weren't a whole lot of people around, but there were enough, like, somebody had to know something. And I think that's why they continue to do these episodes of Unsolved Mysteries, because they're hoping to, like, regenerate interest. Yeah. They definitely got my interest. Now I'm trying to find out who got murdered literally 30 minutes away from us.
Yeah.
And it just made me think, Sigrid is probably not the only murder that ever happened at that campus. In fact, there's probably murders on my campus that they didn't tell us about.
And that's what also had me thinking, like, why did they brush this under the rug the way that they did?
Absolutely. So, somebody on, I don't know if it was Reddit or what, but I was reading the internet, and somebody said, like, oh, I was supposed to start my freshman year that semester. My parents were terrified. And the school, that's exactly why, babe. They probably didn't want to terrify any students. They didn't want people pulling their tuition money. So they just said, let's clean this up nicely and keep it pushing. But imagine if you were a theater major that semester and nobody was talking about it. I would be scared.
Yeah, that's, I can't imagine, like, and like you said, like, it wasn't like, oh, these are the hauntings of Sigrid. Like, nah, it wasn't nothing like that. Like, when we went there, it wasn't at least I didn't notice none. I ain't noticed no memorial for her.
Yeah,
like,
no memorial. That's what really upsets people.
I could be wrong, but, like, at the same time, is that good for, is that good for publicity? Like, oh, this is where one of our students was brutally murdered 50 years ago.
No, but, like, I remember when I was a freshman at Rider, they used to tell us this story about Ryder is so strict with alcohol because this boy went out, got drunk at a party, whatever, was coming back to campus, got hit by a bus. And his family, like, you know, made such a big deal about it. And then they got super strict with alcohol. And it was like one strike and you're out at Ryder. Like, it was crazy. So that is a story that they tell us to warn us. I don't know what they tell people at TCNJ. I actually got accepted to TCNJ. That could have been my college for all I know. But I ended up not going there. But imagine if I did go there. I don't know what TCNJ folks, please let us know. I know that my high school classmates went there. Everybody, please comment and let us know, like, what was the spiel they gave you when you first joined? Like, don't be on campus alone or what? Because had she not been alone, had she just had a friend, like, hey girl, I'll sit with you while you play piano, like, maybe it all could have been different.
I was afraid about the shit that could happen off campus where I went to school.
Yeah.
I was not trying to see no KKK. I wasn't trying to see no crosses on fire.
That's West
like
Virginia,
that.
if y'all didn't know.
I stayed my ass as close to campus as possible.
But like you said, I think that they still could have did something to memorialize her because, you know, when we talk about these true crime cases, the person just gets lost in the crime.
Yeah.
And she's more than just a bludgeoned body covered with a piano blanket. She was a grad student trying to become a teacher. And I was thinking, you know, 25 years old, 1977, she could have been somebody's grandmother, but she'll never get that opportunity. She'll never be a mother. She'll never do all these. She never even got to be a teacher because somebody cut her life short. And like you said, she may not have been the bleach blonde cheerleader or you know, the face of the campus, but it doesn't matter. A life is a life. And especially with her being in the arts, maybe they could have made like a music scholarship or something in her honor.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what they said about people that were on campus saying that they brushed over it. So yeah, during the episode though, they did include some of the detectives that actually investigated the case back in the 70s.
And pause for me. I'm sorry, but a red flag for me because I know that everybody has to start somewhere, but maybe not put the 22-year-old case, 22-year-old detective on this kind of murder. I don't know. I just feel like these kind of things, they be thinking, oh, this will be cut and dry. This will be easy. Let's give it to the rookie.
That's why I be wondering.
Can we stop giving the rookies these big cases?
Was it somebody's, was it like a booster from the university that really didn't want this getting out? So they said, hey, don't put your best detective on it.
Right. And no shade to the guy because he was like, you know, I still think about this case to this day. And
yeah,
it's crazy because if this happened in 77, you're like almost 70 years old now.
He actually said he still lives pretty close to campus. I think like right across the street.
Wow. And
he said he wakes up every day and says good morning to Sigrid as just a way to pay her respect and, you know, her homage for her life being cut short so abruptly, and he feels guilty for it. Yeah. Not to bag on him like he was a young detective, but that is a tough job to put on somebody for one of their first, you know, real cases. But right. I guess, you know, you can't really warm up to that type of work.
You really can't. Like, yeah. That's why I say everybody has to start somewhere. Like, you can't win them all. But I just hate that we have so many cold cases in America. So many. Like, there's a whole show called Cold Case. Maybe we should cover an episode of that because
I used to love watching Cold Case.
I think it's
I like
more,
anything with flashbacks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they had plenty of reenactments in this one too. But I think it's more about resources. Wouldn't you agree? Like, yeah, this cop worked on it for 10 years and then he had to move on to something else, and then this cop picked it up. And
you also got to realize Trenton is not a city where there's any shortage of crime.
Yeah.
So I got to imagine that assets were spread thinly, and actually
in the 70s,
Trenton State is located in Ewing. So Ewing is a city that's basically right next to Trenton, and there are nicer parts of Ewing. So Ewing PD probably doesn't see the same nightmares to the extent that Trenton PD may have to see on a day out, you know, day in, day out basis. So I don't know if that played into it, but to this day, authorities have not been able to pin one person for this crime. It is truly an unsolved mystery, and rest in peace to Sigrid. Yeah. And, you know, her family and her friends and all that could have been just a sad story, man.
It really is, especially like you said, some people have said, oh, they saw a piece of paper blow across the stage and there was no wind, like those kind of ghost stories.
Yeah.
And I just hate when somebody's life just gets turned into an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. I'm sorry, but I know we're sitting here talking about it, but I'm not sitting here like salivating like, ooh, I love a mystery. Like, I genuinely want to know who killed this woman, especially because it's so close to home. Like, a story like this just reminds you, like, it could be anybody. It could happen to any of us.
Yeah.
And the fact that I've been there on that land, like, it just makes me want to become a private investigator. I don't know. So let's get into the Watchy Awards.
Yeah, so for my Watchy Award, I really want to give it to the officer that I was talking about. I can't think of his name right now, but he seemed like really attached to this case, and the fact that he still remembers her and it's still something that he's passionate about. I just hope that maybe one day he gets the opportunity to find some resolve with this, and the family as well. So that's what I'm giving my Watchy Award to.
And I hope it's in his lifetime. I hope it doesn't take another 40 years.
Yeah, that would suck.
Because he would be like 100.
Yes, the 70s was literally 50 years ago. So.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's really crazy. My Watchy Award is going to go to another detective, Julia Caldwell of the Ewing Police. So, like we said, people worked on this case like in the 70s. You know, people picked it up, put it down. She picked the case up in 2018, and she's the one who kind of came up with like 12 more suspects. She was like, listen, I know everybody's stuck on Chuck, but there could be 12 other people. And specifically, like Brother Ash mentioned, it was the lighting technician and the maintenance worker, where she was like, I think these could be it. Unfortunately, this is what I'm saying. It just pisses me off when it's like, oh, we don't have the resources. Apparently, she like went on a medical leave or something and then retired. So she was like, this still eats at me. Like, she wants to solve the case, but now that she's not a police officer anymore, she doesn't have access to the files, which is just like make this shit public already, you know? Like, let other people just solve it for the police. Like, yeah. I would be a volunteer police officer if I could. Like, well, not a police officer, but, you know, like, a detective. If they would allow us to see some of the files. And this is an important actual note for the audience. Y'all can see some of these public documents. There's a lot of things that people don't know. If you just go down to the courthouse and ask, you could get it. They might give you the runaround. They might not try to give it to you immediately, but you can get your hands on some of those public records. So shout out to her for picking it back up as recently as 2018. But I just wish that we had more resources so that these things wouldn't fall to the wayside, because it's going to take another detective who cares strongly about Sigrid to solve this case. Like, you have to actually care and have that drive, you know?
Yeah. It's not always as cut and paste as you think with law enforcement. They don't solve every case. Sometimes they just solve the ones that people are pressing them about.
Exactly. The ones on top of the pile, yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Comment if you're watching on YouTube. And if you see us on any social media, feel free to comment your thoughts. If you know somebody that went to Trenton State or TCNJ that has heard about this nightmare of a night for Sigrid, please comment what y'all are talking about. What's the buzz around campus when it comes to that? Is there any buzz at all? Did we just let you know that your alma mater,
I hope not,
had something like this happen back in the 70s? I'm gonna go do my homework and I'm gonna go talk to Mama Ash about this. And yeah, if you guys see us on the socials, don't forget to engage. We love it when you guys give us feedback. Follow us on TikTok at watch.worthypod and Instagram at watchworthypod. And until next time, peace.
Bye.